All right, everybody. Going to talk to Richard Essex. He's the managing director of UK for Jobiqo, and he's on the line now from the UK. So how's it going, Richard?
Really good. Hi, nice to see you, Chris.
Yep.
From a wet and windy London. It's good to speak to you.
Same here in Connecticut. So I guess just to give us a quick introduction to you and tell us what's new over at Jobiqo.
So Jobiqo, I'm relatively new. Jobiqo's recently opened its operation here in the UK. We are originally from the DACH region, so Austria, Germany, Switzerland. And as a business, we have been going now for 8 years. So the UK is its next step, I guess, for global presence. And it's really interesting times, actually, especially in the world of job boards. You know, there's some good things happening out there, just generally in tech, generally in recruitment, whatever side you sit on, whether it's talent acquisition or in staffing, and some of the stuff that Jobiqo are obviously offering to their clients. Really interesting times.
Yeah, excellent. Jobiqo, of course, is a job board software company. And Richard, what just name a couple of sites that you guys power out there for examples, if you could.
Motorsport Jobs is one of the ones that's been out there for some time. We've just recently gone live. When you introed, I had a bit of a grin on my face. We've just finished the go live for EMAP, and EMAP being one of the big UK publishers. We're going live with their job boards as we speak. So one of the big ones was Drapers, probably their biggest job board. It's just been a really nice, seamless process. It's been a really good rollout. So yeah, feeling really good about those. And that includes some of their sites. New Civil Engineer Careers went live a couple of weeks ago. That was the first. So yeah, we've got about 10 now live in the UK, and the remainder, it's about 150, 160 around Europe and a few in the US as well. So we're getting there.
Gotcha. Cool. And what would you say is sort of the core differentiating features of Jobiqo? Do you have a couple you could share with us?
Yeah, I've been around job boards a long time, and I think one of the things that's been fairly obvious, and when I mean long time, I'm kind of going back to the mid-90s, but you know, really having spent nearly 12 years of my life at Broadbean Technology, watched the growth of job boards, and they hadn't really changed that much. I think with Jobiqo, one of the things that strikes me, even though you're really looking at fundamentally a job board, is actually what really happens behind the scenes. I think most people, when they think about tech, especially website builds, you know, they're looking at new, beautiful front ends. You know, how is AI affecting the front end? You know, what's the new look and feel of different types of job boards? At the moment, that's not really the kind of specialism of Jobiqo. That comes as part of the design. Really, it's what's going on behind the scenes, and anything from the way that the technology teams work together with the project managers, the way that we deliver. For me, the thing that I bought into really when I first started speaking to Jobiqo was just the flexibility behind the scenes of the job board and the platform itself. You know, we generally talk about our SaaS platform that is fully flexible, fully customizable, which I think one expects these days with a good SaaS software. But it's how flexible that is and how the bespoke layer sits on top of what we actually deliver to our clients. So that flexibility. For instance, a good example would be multi-site architecture. You know, the ability to roll out a job board. Many job boards work in the niche space, right? I think I'm hearing a lot of positivity actually at the moment about the niche job boards really focusing almost more, if anything, on their own specialist skill, and their vertical market. There's a lot of publishers, a lot of big businesses out there that would actually like to release more of the same thing, but with specifically unique niche vertical content. One of the real benefits to Jobiqo is how simply, I'll probably get shot for saying simply, but how simply we can actually roll out the first phase of the boards, get the platform rolled out, and then lay on top of that the unique sites in a multi-site architecture. So I'm not going to get too technical. I won't pretend to be technical, but that for me is something that's really appealing to many of the job board owners.
Awesome. Well, Brooke, today you guys put out a PDF or ebook recently called the Jobiqo Job Board Model Playbook, where you kind of break down the different revenue models of job boards. So we're going to talk about that today and get your feedback on some of these things. I'm going to share the doc in a second here. Let me get my screen shared. And let's see. All right. Can you see the ebook now, Richard?
Yes. Yeah, there it is.
All right. So
beautiful.
Yep. Did you have a hand in writing this, or who actually?
I had some input. Yeah, we had a few, I guess, people that input. Generally speaking, we had some overview from obviously Talent Nexus have helped out. There's a document in there. We've also had some information just gathered generally from some experts in the industry, which has really helped put this book together. I think really the purpose of the playbook, it's not so much it's not an advertising tool. That's not why we wrote it. We wrote it because there's a lot of I think need for just information from job board to job board. It helps job boards know what are the options out there for them, and the different commercial models, especially. It's fascinating actually. I mentioned Broadbean earlier. The fact that I've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of different job boards, and it's very easy to assume that they all know each other and everyone knows the other one's business model and why that one's successful, why that one's not. And actually, what's become quite obvious is how disparate a market it really is, even though it's quite competitive. And there's a lot of conversation recently. For instance, our CEO Martin Lenz just did another podcast about the future of job boards and where they can go.
Yeah.
And that tied in quite nicely with the job board playbook. We attended the JobGate conference where we wanted that to be seen by some of the job boards, really to give people an idea of what is possible out there and what they can work towards as part of the evolution of the job board industry. So that's really where it came from. Okay. Help and advice is paramount, I think, in this industry.
All right, so you got 6 common models, what that could mean for your business. Let's kind of go through those. If you could just page here and just kind of run us through first briefly what each of them is.
Scroll up. So this is obviously the I guess the first is just the traditional job board. The job boards that have come from the standard playbook. I guess is a duration-based posting. I buy a credit, however many weeks or month or days that credit runs for. And then you have the various different ways in which those can now be paid for. So obviously you can see the pay per post, pay per click, pay per application, pay per hire, and subscription models. They're all options out there that some of the job boards could look to if they have just a traditional job board model. To be honest, as exactly as it says on the tin, as it implies on the document.
Yep.
So so the traditional model is one that I think most of us are familiar with, based on what we all know and love in so many of the job boards out there.
Yeah. What would you say the majority of your clients are on as far as models here? Is it traditional or?
Yeah, definitely paper post is the by far the most common. I think the pay per click model and anything beyond that, i.e. pay per performance, is something that's tried and tested. I don't particularly want to name specific websites, but certainly from I remember years ago, sort of 2006-07, the conversation starting back then. Certainly when we were discussing it in the early days at Broadbean and how that could play out, how you could actually measure it, where was the data coming from to actually record that success. And I don't know if it's moved on a huge amount since then. I think that's the reality, is how do you measure that success? And do people trust in the data? That's very important to trust the data that's coming back, whether it comes from an applicant tracking system, whether it's coming in another way. So paper performance would be a great way to move forwards. And I think the job boards want to show you that they're performing well. They want to be able to prove that what they're offering are great candidates. Otherwise, they can disappear into the ether of talent pools and not actually even be source tracked. So, but currently it is pay per post. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I think and if you have a smaller site too, I don't think PPC or even pay for post is probably a good option for you, because just of the size of the business would be pretty small at that point overall. Yeah. So I think duration-based models are still work for the traditional niche small job board, right? Overall. How many, do you have any clients now that do where the candidate pays it all? There are a couple sites out there, particularly in hard to find job niches like work in sports. That was one I know here in the US.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any clients on that particular model?
Certainly not over here in the UK. I'm fairly sure that's not. I think it's still illegal to actually charge a candidate to find a job.
Really?
I need to check that one, actually. I know it used to be, but I need to check on that one. But
I've never heard of that. In the US, there's definitely there was
some crazy law that I'm fairly sure years ago it was something that you couldn't do. But no one's charging the candidate as of yet.
Speaking of that, what about things like charging them for featuring their resume or some other type of profile surfacing type of product like that?
Is that something? I mean, Chris, is that out of interest? Is that something you've seen work anywhere? Because
I mean, I have a site now that I allow. It's called Job Modes, and I allow seekers on there to feature their profile for. I think it's $20. It's a small fee, right? Even before that, though, when I ran my local job boards, there was a resume product in there where you could actually feature your resume, put it at the top of the listings for employers are searching that stuff. So, there's definitely some money there. It's not a whole lot, but to me, it just adds to your bottom line, and it's something that I think candidates will pay for. I've seen that before, so.
Yeah, I've seen it. I think likes of Expertier, for instance, in Germany, they have a model similar to that. But as of yet, it's not something that I believe we've gone live with any clients yet. It's part of the many conversations we have around what's next on the product roadmap. Yeah.
All right. So we've also got Aggregator. Of course, we kind of know what they are. Aggregators, I think, are. To me, a lot of sites now, if they basically scrape jobs, are kind of aggregators and traditional job boards as well. I mean, my job mode site is there, so I do aggregate listings as well as accept postings. Overall, are you seeing more and more sites doing that as well?
Yeah, definitely. Because it follows in the wake of so many other successful job boards and companies such as Indeed. Definitely seeing that, and actually seeing it a lot with the new job boards, new companies coming to us to build a job board and asking about that model as a specific model. Definitely.
Yeah, I think it makes sense for a lot of sites, even from a small site to a big one as well.
Yeah.
What is the sourcing model? Describe that.
The sourcing model Sorry, random question, but the sourcing model in the playbook?
Yes. It says subscription, so it's just a subscription based.
Oh, subscription based, yeah. In terms of how does that work, technically, or just for the candidate?
So just explain that model if you could for job boards. Subscription model it's a subscription for employers to pay.
Yeah, so you just pay a monthly fee to access the site, and you're given X. I guess you could call it something like bronze, silver, gold, depending on the marketing of your job board. But essentially, it gives the client the ability to have a subscription and a level of access to various different parts of the site, whether it's database, whether it's postings, based on a subscription per month pricing model.
Gotcha. Yeah. Do you have a lot of clients using that particular model at all, or it's subscription-based job boards are, to me, at least, getting some steam?
Yeah, I think we've got quite a few actually based out in Europe. Certainly none in the UK. We've got some based in Germany, I believe.
Gotcha. Richard, here's a question for you. What are some baseline metrics for knowing if your job board is successful? Do you have any thoughts there around some numbers, whether it's traffic or sales, or maybe even what to expect in the first year? I get that question a lot. I have my own thoughts on that, but what should a successful job board look like after, let's say, 1 year of operation, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, apart from the obvious sales of new clients on board, I think the big thing is traffic. Where's that traffic coming from? Is it traffic that is unique to us as a site, especially as I mentioned earlier with the niche sites? Niche sites tend to specialize well in content, so they tend to get good candidates in, and where that traffic is coming from, I think is really, really important. Whether it's not just coming from social media, but actually some unique content that's written by the publisher or people on the site. So definitely traffic is I think one of the first and primary goals of any job board, whether it's a startup or an existing job board at the moment, looking at its own market space.
Yep. And give me an example of that. So let's say I'm running a site for, I don't know, manufacturing jobs, and it's for the U.S. What would a typical target number be for traffic after a year, would you say?
So when a target of what? Sorry, Chris.
How many monthly visitors should I be attracting after a year?
It's definitely going to differ between the US and the UK. We have totally different size market space. I'll give you an example. We were speaking earlier to a fashion website, and they currently have a database of approximately 30,000 CVs, resumes, and that actually is a big database, certainly over here in the UK for a niche site. And that database tends to now be purged quite regularly. It needs to be partly because you want fresh, up-to-date candidates in there. So, the target for them is to put on between sort of 2,000 and 3,000 new CVs every month in that particular market. But then it depends on the size of the actual, I guess, the target audience that you're aiming at. So, I'm guessing in the US you've got a few more candidates.
Yeah, I mean, I see kind of a baseline, like 10,000 monthly visitors is a good number to shoot for. But speaking of resumes, how big are resume access databases selling that over there in the EU? Is it pretty big?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that almost all of the job boards these days, certainly the successful ones, have got a resume database. Everyone needs to have a decent candidate pool for recruiters and direct employers to be able to source from. It's not just about online advertising. I think that the database is key to the results. You can measure the performance from there as well. So database is very important. Depending on how you access that database, again, depends on, I guess, how successful that job board then comes back to you, and obviously the recurring business that you're going to get from having an accurate database that is constantly refreshed. So where those candidates come from, again, that's the traffic, and getting them into there is very, very important.
What type of pricing do you see there from your client base? So what are they charging for access to these databases?
It depends on. It could be a per click price, say £5 per click. So to reveal the CV based on, say, anything between sort of 10 CVs a week up to 100. I think it also varies considerably over here based on the direct employer model versus the staffing agencies, who are obviously working on volume. There's really, in the UK, quite a discrepancy between the two and the way in which those are accessed. So it could range. For instance, I was speaking to an energy site recently. They're looking up to 100 resumes a week, and that's £5 a post. So that seems to be a fairly reasonable average at the moment. Okay,
very good. How about things like banner ads and AdSense? Do you see a lot of your clients using that?
There's a real mixed opinion on that. Funny enough, we again one client in particular we were having this conversation with recently. actually decided to remove banners and skyscrapers. They said they were looking at the data behind it, they were measuring it, they weren't really getting activity from it. And yet another company we spoke to who aren't being rolled out, but we were looking at their data and their analytics, have to have their skyscrapers. They're essential to, in their case, it's the 16 to 24-year-old market. So youngsters who are looking for jobs often clicking around. And that may be a generation thing. I don't know. I mean, I remember when skyscrapers and banners were something out there that you kind of clicked on and, you know, before the days of spam, I guess, and you know, maybe someone of my age wouldn't click on banners, but maybe, you know, younger generations do. So again, it could be just a discrepancy in the target audience that affects whether or not skyscrapers and banners work or not.
Yeah.
Again, it's a bit of a on the fence answer, but it really does vary considering who we seem to speak to as to whether or not they're pushing them or not.
Yeah. I forgot to ask you too. Does the Jobiqo software support all that resume purchasing and things like that? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, okay. And variations of it as well, depending on what's needed. Yep. And that's actually one of the flexibilities of the system. You know, there's the standard off the shelf that you can have, but then there's also the ability to bespoke it based on what it is that you really look for.
Yep. What about things like PPC stuff? If I want to run an aggregator, do you have the admin tools in there to support something like that?
We do, but again, that's part of the bespoke package that sits on top. So as I often find myself saying, and it's probably wrong to say it, but anything's possible with technology, right? So we have such an impressive team of developers that if it's something that's unique to a particular client, although it may sit on top of the SaaS, we're very happy to build it. Obviously, there's a cost, but that's definitely something that we're very interested in pushing forwards as pay-per-click, you know, takes hold of the market, as it's something that is of benefit to job boards.
Yeah, awesome. Well, where can they get the PDF, Richard? We'll put the link in the show notes here, but tell them where to go.
Yeah, so the URL, so you go to jobiqo.com/playbook, and that will give you a form to fill in. Doesn't mean you'll be bombarded by emails. It just gives you the chance to have that document downloaded. It's free to download, so feel free to download it. And at some point, obviously in the near future, we'll have some updates to it as well.
Gotcha. Let me close my screen here. Awesome. Well, any last thoughts, Richard? What's next for Jobiqo these days?
I think the US, actually, you know, that is definitely as a business, you know, we've grown organically. We don't have salesmen, which is kind of strange these days, but you know, we don't have salesmen pushing the products out there. It has been genuinely through word of mouth, which is a fantastic way to grow because it gives us such a solid client base, great retention rate, all the things that you expect from a good software business. And the US is calling for us. We have, as I say, we have many companies out there already that we provide. So I think watch this space because we've got that coming. So yeah, onwards and upwards.
Good deal. All right. Well, we'll keep us informed and stay in touch. And thanks for joining us today.
Chris, pleasure. Thank you so much for your time today.
All right. Take care, Richard. And thanks for watching, everyone.
All the best. Cheers.